They say betrayal never comes from your enemies. It comes from those you trust the most. Looking back, I wish I had seen the signs earlier, but love makes a fool of us all. My name is Ethan Carter, and for most of my life, I thought I had it all. A successful career as a doctor, a loving wife I met in school, and a best friend who had been by my side through thick and thin. I built my life on trust, on the belief that the people closest to me would never hurt me. But I was wrong. Meeting Emily. I met Emily in my first year of medical school. She wasn't a doctor like me. She was studying law, but we met in a cafe near campus one rainy afternoon, both reaching for the last cup of coffee on the counter. She laughed and let me have it, but I insisted we share a table while she sipped her tea. That was the beginning of everything. Emily was smart, beautiful, and full of life. She had a way of making me feel like the only person in the room when she talked to me. We started dating, and by the time we graduated, we were inseparable. I proposed a year later, and she said yes with tears in her eyes. We built a life together, bought a house, planned for a future filled with love and success. And for a while, everything was perfect. The man I called my best friend. Then there was Ryan Bennett. He and I have been friends since childhood. We grew up in the same neighborhood, played on the same little league team, and even went to the same college. Ryan was the kind of guy who could walk into a room and make everyone like him. Charismatic, funny, and always the life of the party. Unlike me, Ryan never settled down. He bounced from job to job, relationship to relationship, never taking life too seriously. But that never mattered to me. We were like brothers, and I always believed he had my back. When Emily and I got married, Ryan was my best man. He gave a speech that had the whole room laughing and crying at the same time. To Ethan and Emily, he said, raising his glass. The perfect couple. May you always be as disgustingly in love as you are today. If only I had known then what was coming. Building a life together. As I advanced in my career, Emily built hers too. She became a successful attorney, known for her sharp mind and fierce determination. We were both busy, but we made time for each other. Friday nights were always date nights. Sundays were lazy mornings in bed, followed by long walks in the park. Ryan remained a constant in our lives. He'd come over for dinner, watch football with me on weekends, and sometimes crash on our couch after one too many drinks. Emily liked him, and I was glad they got along. I never had any reason to doubt either of them. But looking back, there were moments, small ones, that should have made me pause. The way Ryan always found excuses to drop by when I wasn't home. The way Emily laughed just a little too hard at his jokes. The way their conversations seemed to have inside jokes I wasn't part of. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, I trusted them both. The first signs of change. It wasn't until a few years into our marriage that things started to shift. Emily became distant, not in an obvious way, but in the little things. She started working late more often. She seemed distracted, lost in thought. Our conversations became shorter, our nights together fewer. I asked if something was wrong, but she always reassured me with a tired smile. Just work stress, she'd say. Ryan, too, seemed different. He wasn't around as much, and when he was, there was something off about him, like he was avoiding looking me in the eye. I should have questioned it more. I should have paid attention, but I didn't. I convinced myself that marriage had its ups and downs, that we were just going through a rough patch. I never imagined the truth would be far worse than I could ever have expected. A life built on lies. At that time, I still believed in us. In my marriage, in my friendship with Ryan. I had no idea that the very people I trusted the most were already making choices that would shatter my world. And by the time I finally saw it, it was too late. There's always a moment, one specific point in time, where everything begins to fall apart. You don't always recognize it right away, but when you look back, you see it as clear as day. For me, that moment came on a quiet Thursday evening in the smallest, most ordinary way. A change in the air. Emily had always been affectionate. Even after years of marriage, she'd kiss me goodbye before work, text me during the day, and curl up next to me on the couch in the evenings. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, those little gestures began to fade. I remember that Thursday night. I had just gotten home from the hospital, exhausted after a 14-hour shift. Normally, Emily would greet me with a tired smile, maybe even a joke about how I looked like a walking corpse. But that night, she barely looked up from her phone when I walked in. "Hey," I said, dropping my bag by the door. "Hey," she murmured, her eyes fixed on the screen. It was a small thing, nothing dramatic, but it felt off. "Everything okay?" I asked, walking over to kiss her on the cheek. She flinched. It was barely noticeable, but I felt it. "Yeah," she said quickly. "Just a long day at work." I wanted to believe her. I told myself I was overthinking it. But that tiny moment, that instinct in my gut, it stayed with me. Ryan's unusual behavior. Ryan had always been a social guy, the kind of friend who would show up unannounced with a six-pack and some wild story about his latest misadventure. But lately, he had become more distant. We still talked, but something was different. He wasn't coming around as much. When we did hang out, he seemed distracted, like he was carrying some unspoken weight. One night, after a few beers, I finally called him out on it. "You good, man?" I asked. "You've been acting weird lately." Ryan hesitated before forcing a grin. "Work's been stressful. You know how it is." Except I did know Ryan, and work had never stressed him out before. He had a habit of drifting from one job to another, never staying anywhere long enough to care. But I let it go. He was my best friend. If something was wrong, he'd tell me, or so I thought. The late nights. The late nights started soon after. Emily's job had always been demanding, but now she was staying at the office later and later. At first, I didn't question it. She was dedicated to her career, and I respected that. But then came the nights she didn't come home at all. The first time, she called me around 10, apologizing. "I have a huge case, and we're working through the night. I'll crash at my coworker's place and be home in the morning." I didn't like it, but I understood. The second time, she didn't call until after midnight. "Fell asleep at the office," she said. "Sorry, I should have texted." The third time, she didn't call at all. I woke up alone, staring at my phone, waiting for a message that never came. When she finally walked through the door the next morning, I was sitting on the couch, waiting. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I told you work has been insane." I barely closed my eyes. "Then why didn't you call?" Her eyes flickered, just for a second, before she forced a tired smile. "I didn't want to wake you." It sounded reasonable, but deep down something didn't feel right. Doubt creeps in. I tried to brush it off, but once suspicion enters your mind, it spreads like a disease. Every little thing felt different now. The way she guarded her phone, the way she seemed to disappear into another world when she was texting, the way she suddenly started caring about her appearance more than usual. New clothes, new perfume, extra time spent getting ready before leaving the house. One night, I woke up to find her missing from bed. I got up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and found her in the living room, phone in hand. "Who are you texting?" I asked. She jumped, quickly locking the screen. "Just a friend from work." I stared at her for a moment, my chest tightening. "I miss you," I said softly. She looked at me, then really looked at me, and for a second I thought she was going to say something real, something honest. But instead, she smiled that tired smile again and kissed my cheek. "I love you," she whispered. I wanted to believe her, but the cracks in our marriage were growing, and I was beginning to realize I might not be able to fix them. A warning I didn't see coming. The final straw came from the most unexpected place. One afternoon, I was grabbing coffee near the hospital when an old college friend, Jake, spotted me. We hadn't talked in years, but we caught up quickly, laughing about old times. Then, just as I was about to leave, his expression turned serious. "Hey, listen," Jake said, lowering his voice. "I don't know how to say this, but is everything okay with you and Emily?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" Jake hesitated. "I saw her the other night. She was at a bar with Ryan." I felt my stomach drop. "They look pretty close," he added. I didn't want to assume anything, but I figured you should know. I forced a chuckle, brushing it off. "Ryan and Emily are friends." "It's nothing." Jake nodded, but the look in his eyes told me he wasn't convinced. And deep down, neither was I. The beginning of the end. That night, as Emily lay beside me, fast asleep, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. Ryan, My best friend. The man I trusted more than anyone. Could he really? No, it wasn't possible. Except the doubt was there now, whispering in my ear, refusing to be ignored. Something was wrong, and I was about to find out just how deep the betrayal ran. They say the truth has a way of revealing itself, no matter how hard someone tries to hide it. I didn't go looking for proof of Emily's betrayal. I wanted to believe in her, in us. But when the truth came, it didn't creep in gently. It crashed over me like a wave, destroying everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my friendship, and the people I trusted most. The night everything changed. It was a Friday night. Emily had told me she was working late again, and Ryan had been avoiding me for weeks. The uneasy feeling in my gut had grown stronger, twisting like a knife every time I saw her glance at her phone or heard Ryan's name come up in conversation. I was supposed to be at the hospital that night, pulling an overnight shift, but a last-minute schedule change sent me home earlier than planned. I didn't text Emily to let her know. I figured I'd surprise her with takeout and a bottle of wine, hoping to reconnect. But as I pulled into our driveway, I noticed something strange. A car parked a little too far down the street. A car I knew all too well. Ryan's car. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I tried to push the thought away. Maybe he had come over to check on Emily. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. But deep down, I already knew the truth. A painful discovery. I stepped out of my car, my heart pounding. As I walked up to the front door, I hesitated. Should I knock? Should I walk away and pretend I didn't see his car? Instead, I pulled out my keys and unlocked the door. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of music coming from upstairs. I took a deep breath and walked toward our bedroom. With each step, my stomach twisted tighter, my worst fears clawing at the edges of my mind. Then I heard it. Laughter. A soft moan. The unmistakable sound of betrayal. My body went cold. I could have turned around. I could have walked away, spared myself from seeing what I already knew. But something in me needed to see it, needed the truth to punch me in the gut, so there would be no more doubt. I pushed the door open. There they were, Emily and Ryan, tangled together in our bed. For a moment, none of us moved. Emily's eyes widened in horror, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for words. Ryan scrambled to sit up, his face pale. But I didn't need words. The truth was right in front of me. The confrontation. The room was suffocating. The air thick with betrayal. The sheets I had slept in for years now tainted with their lies. Ryan was the first to speak. Ethan, don't. My voice was low, steady, but filled with something I had never felt before. A rage so deep, so consuming, I could barely see straight. Emily clutched the blanket to her chest, tears spilling down her face. I can explain. Explain what? I cut her off, my voice sharp. That you've been sleeping with my best friend? That every time you told me you were working late, you were with him instead? She flinched, but I didn't care. How long? I demanded. How long has this been going on? Emily wiped her eyes, but I wasn't interested in her tears. I wanted the truth. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Ethan, man, it just happened. I laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh. It just happened? You don't accidentally sleep with your best friend's wife, Ryan. Emily sniffled. It wasn't planned, Ethan. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. I stared at her, at the woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with. Was any of it real? Or was I just a fool from the start? She shook her head. Of course it was real. I loved you. Love. Past tense. The word cut deeper than I expected. I turned to Ryan, the man I had considered a brother. And you? After everything we've been through? You throw it all away for this. Ryan looked away. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. You didn't mean for me to find out, you mean? Neither of them spoke. The breaking point. I could have hit him. Every muscle in my body screamed for it. I wanted to make him feel even a fraction of the pain he had caused me. But I didn't. Instead, I turned to Emily. You want to be with him? My voice was cold now. Empty. She didn't answer right away, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I nodded slowly. Then you can have him. I walked out. I didn't take anything. Not my clothes, not my keys, nothing. I just walked, my chest hollow, my hands shaking. That night, I checked into a hotel, staring at the ceiling for hours, trying to understand how everything had come crashing down so fast. The aftermath. The next few weeks were a blur. Emily tried calling me, but I ignored her. Ryan sent messages, weak attempts at apologies, but I blocked his number. I filed for divorce immediately. There was nothing left to save. I expected Ryan and Emily to ride off into the sunset together, but life had other plans. Because betrayal has a price, and they were both about to pay it. Betrayal never ends the way the betrayers think it will. Maybe at first there's excitement, passion, a sense of winning. But in the end, it always comes with a cost. And for Emily and Ryan, the price of their betrayal was heavier than they ever could have imagined. Life after divorce. The divorce was finalized faster than I expected. I had no desire to fight for anything. Not the house, not the furniture, not even the wedding photos. I let Emily have it all. I just wanted out. She tried to reach out a few times. At first, it was apologetic texts. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. Please, can we talk?" Then came the justifications. It wasn't just about Ryan. We were drifting apart. I didn't know how to fix it. And finally, the regret. "I miss you. I don't know if I made a mistake." I never responded. There was nothing left to say. Ryan's guilt. Ryan didn't reach out for a while. Maybe he was giving me space, or maybe he knew I'd never forgive him. But one night, about a month after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered out of habit. "Ethan, it's me." Ryan's voice was different. Tired. Worn down. I almost hung up, but something in his tone made me hesitate. "What do you want?" I said coldly. He sighed. I need to say I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but you don't." Silence. I could hear him breathing, hear the weight in his voice. "I screwed up, man. I lost my best friend. I lost everything." I wanted to feel satisfied hearing that. I wanted to feel like he was getting what he deserved, but I didn't feel anything at all. "Is that all?" I asked. He hesitated. Then, in a voice so low I almost didn't hear it, he muttered, "It's not what I thought it would be." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" He let out a bitter chuckle. "Emily and me. It's different now. She's different. Emily's regrets." I didn't care to know what was going on between them. But I heard enough. Ryan and Emily didn't get the fairy tale they expected. The thrill of sneaking around had vanished, and all that was left was reality. Ryan had never been one for commitment, and now he was stuck in a situation he wasn't prepared for. Emily, on the other hand, had thought leaving me would bring her happiness, but it didn't. Mutual friends started telling me things. Emily wasn't happy. She complained about Ryan, about how he wasn't the man she thought he was. One night, I ran into an old friend at a bar. He gave me a knowing look. "Did you hear?" he asked, sipping his drink. I shrugged. "I don't keep up with them." He chuckled. "Emily caught Ryan cheating." I blinked. "What?" He nodded. "Walked in on him with some other woman. Just like you did." I didn't say anything. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I also didn't feel happy about it. It was just inevitable. Karma comes full circle. Ryan and Emily didn't last. Within 6 months, they were done. She had left her husband for him, thinking he was the better choice. He had betrayed his best friend for her, thinking it was love. And in the end, they betrayed each other. Emily tried reaching out again after it all fell apart. This time, the messages were desperate. "I made a mistake, Ethan. I was wrong. Can we talk? I miss you. Please. I understand if you hate me, but I still love you." I never replied. She had made her choice. So had Ryan. And now they had to live with it. Moving on. It took time, but I found peace. I focused on my career. I reconnected with old friends. I started dating again, not to fill a void, but because I was finally ready. One night, as I was leaving the hospital, I caught my reflection in a glass window. For the first time in a long time, I saw someone who wasn't broken anymore. I had survived the worst kind of betrayal, and I had come out stronger. Emily and Ryan were just a chapter in my life. A painful one, but not the end of my story. I walked away that night, not looking back. They say time heals all wounds, but I don't think that's true. Some wounds never fully heal. They just stop bleeding. The pain dulls, the memories fade, but the scars remain. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe scars are reminders, not of pain, but of survival. Looking back, it's been 2 years since the night I walked in on Emily and Ryan. 2 years since my world shattered. And yet, if you ask me today whether I'd change anything, I'm not sure I would. Because losing them was the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, I thought their betrayal had ruined me. I thought I'd never trust again, never love again. But I was wrong. Their betrayal freed me. Freed me from a marriage that was already dying. Freed me from a friend who never truly valued me. Freed me from the illusion that love is about holding on, even when it's breaking you. Where they are now, I hear things from time to time. I don't seek out updates, but people love gossip. And when you're a well-known doctor, people think you care about every detail of your past. Ryan moved away, probably to escape the shame. He tried to rebuild his life, but trust is hard to earn once you've proven you're willing to stab your best friend in the back. From what I hear, he's alone now, hopping from one relationship to another, never settling. Emily still lives in the same town. She dated for a while, but nothing serious. I heard she even tried therapy to understand her choices. Maybe she's changed. Maybe she hasn't. I don't care to find out. Where I am now. As for me, I'm good. Better than I ever was with Emily. I build a new life. One that's mine alone. I travel more. I spend time with people who actually value me. And most importantly, I learned how to be happy without tying that happiness to someone else. I did find love again. Not quickly, not desperately, but naturally. She's nothing like Emily, and that's exactly what I needed. I don't hate Emily anymore. I don't even hate Ryan. Hatred takes up too much space in the heart, and I'd rather fill mine with things that matter. Final thoughts. Infidelity changes you. Betrayal changes you. But it doesn't have to destroy you. It can make you stronger, wiser, more aware of what you deserve. If I could go back in time and warn myself about what was coming, I wouldn't. Because I needed to go through it to become the man I am today. And today, I am happy.